Today, we're going to do something I have always wanted to do on this channel, and that is show you my Baltimore City and Baltimore area transit fantasy map. For this, we are going to use one of my favorite tools, Metro Dreamin', no G at the end. It's one of my favorite things to use, tools to use. For the most part, it's because it has this ability to show you not just how much something they estimate it to cost, which I'll be honest, they drastically underestimate, but it allows you to go through different tiers of map styles. So it'll show you the satellite, sort of like a Google Maps type of thing. It'll show you, there's a map that shows you active rail lines in these little pink lines that'll go across the screen. So what I've done is I have mapped the current Baltimore light rail, as you'll see, and the current Baltimore J-shaped metro line, green line, as you will also see, and then added my own pieces of infrastructure to it. In a universe in which the budget for the Maryland MTA is, for the most part, unlimited. I will go over why I've made these certain mode choices, because there's different modes going on here. Spoiler alert, there is no BRT involved.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
There will be light rail, metro, heavy rail. I did not do regional rail for this specifically. The reason being for that is because the trouble with the
Oh, hi, Mark.
is that it tends to mostly focus on Washington, D.C. If I was doing a Washington, D.C. version of this, which I may do in the future, I don't know, then I would have put the MARC on there. I'm not putting it on there for this, but what I did do is have lines. So for example, I brought back the Penn shuttle, which is basically the light rail. There's a light rail stop at Penn Station. It's currently not in use. I have brought that back and done all sorts of other things. So there's going to be a lot of different route combinations. There's going to be sort of an homage to the 2002 Region Rail System Plan. This is going to be a video where I'm just playing around on Metro Dreamin', showing you what I've created, and you can talk to me in the comments, and you can tell me whether or not this map sucks, what you would do different, or if you agree with any of the changes that I've made to what I think should be in an ideal world, Baltimore's transit system. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are. This is the map. This is my map for Baltimore City. As you can see, we have the blue line here. That is the current light rail alignment that goes all the way to BWI Airport and of course to Cromwell and Glen Burnie. And then we have the Owings Mills to downtown Baltimore City Green Line here. And as you can see, I've added a lot. So let's get into it. Firstly, what have we kept the same? So this is the blue line through Hunt Valley. Still going to the shopping center, still going to Schilling Road, still going to McCormick Road, still to Gilroy, and still to Warren in Cockeysville. Still to the Timonium Fairgrounds, but we've added Texas here. Texas is a stop that actually the head of the MTA, Holly Arnold, has said that she would love to bring back because the facilities and the stop and all the infrastructure really is there. So I've included it there. I think this is the most slam dunk of a station or an addition on my quote unquote fantasy map that actually will come to fruition one day, which I think is really exciting. So we will go down here to Timonium, obviously the Timonium Business District. This is a stop that is only made, I think, by either north or southbound light rail trains. And then of course, Lutherville Transportation Center. As we can see, this is my first little foray into adding something new. So what have we added? Let's look at the show more section here. So I know it says tram here in the section of light rail. The reason for that is light rail / interurban is the way that they coin it on Metro Dreamin'. I don't think that that necessarily represents the true speed of the light rail in Baltimore City, and that is not a good thing in this regard. I know I'm fairly negative on the light rail, but tram more represents the speed that Metro Dreamin' sort of gives this. And it is kind of in line with what the future of the Baltimore Light Rail may actually look like. The Baltimore Light Rail is going to get low floor vehicles in the future, making it more or less a tram through downtown Baltimore City. So that is kind of what I'm going for here. This purple line here, as you can see, does not show up in the tram section. Why? Because it is Metro, the Metro subway link purple line. The reason for this, actually, and I can link this on the screen, I think I'll find a way to do that. There is a corridor study ongoing for this York Road, Greenmount Avenue, downtown Baltimore City through Hanover and down into Federal Hill section. There is a route study going on right now that would feasibly and ostensibly replace the the CityLink Red bus route. I don't know that it necessarily replaces it because I think it should still exist, but I think it's, anyway, part of that route study is a heavy rail option that would be below grade and above grade at certain points, but I think below grade is better. This would run through downtown Baltimore City, as you can see, and into the Federal Hill neighborhood. This would just basically give Baltimore what it necessarily needed from the beginning, which is a connection through Towson, a heavy rail connection to Baltimore City from Towson, and more service, honestly, for Orioles and Ravens game days, for just getting downtown to connect. But as you can see with the rest of the map, this is not just the only thing that Baltimore needs, at least in my opinion, when it comes to heavy rail infrastructure. Remember, this used to be a city of over 1 million people. We have the ability to be that again. We just need to build the infrastructure for it, because cars do not lend themselves to, providing for that level of human density. So as you can see, it connects to the purple line here at the Lutherville Transportation Center. And if we zoom in here, we'll see that it's the Lutherville Station Shopping Center. We'll go into satellite mode here and just kind of show what that truly means. Station's obviously in the same place. This white line here is just the transfer to show that there is a transfer between two different modes. It's not actually what a pedestrian bridge would truly look like. But you could fairly easily build a station in this giant parking lot here, either at grade, above grade, below grade. I have it, I believe, below grade here, as you can see right here. And then it goes down York Road, below grade, to Bologna, then to cross this. So this would be either tunneled or a bridge over the Beltway to Carver, and then to, obviously, to Towson, Town Center here. We'll get into the purple line, but that is the crux of how it connects to what we currently have on the light rail. So the light rail stays the same through Ruxton. There is no additional stops added. Falls Road is still there by Lake Roland, Mount Washington, and Cold Spring. Woodbury, which is the stop up by TV Hill, is still there. And then North Avenue. As we can see at North Avenue, things start to get a little interesting. There's a new line here. This is the CityLink Gold, not the bus, but the subway. So we have a subway link gold that will replace Again, not replace, but that will mimic the CityLink Gold bus route that runs along North Avenue right now. Still keeping the bus lanes, but adding subway. Why? Well, for two reasons. One, this is one of the densest corridors in Baltimore City, and it represents a neighborhood where the rate of car ownership is one of the lowest in the entire metropolitan region. It's a good thing to have subway service, specifically subway service, but transit service in general that is rapid, that gets people to and from very quickly in areas with low rates of car ownership. We'll get more into the Gold Line in a minute, but to continue on with the blue line here, the light rail link here. So we have Mount Royal Micah. That stop stays the same. This is the Penn Station branch that I was telling you about that I've brought back here. It also connects to the Purple Line. We go down, we have Cultural Center, obviously, Mount Vernon, of course, Lexington Market as well. You can see we've added an orange line. Again, I will get into that. That is heavy rail metro. That's not light rail. Initially, I thought it could be good as a light rail, but I've changed my mind on that. The blue line comes down here, obviously CFG Bank Arena or the Baltimore Arena stop. And then the Convention Center / Camden Yards area. As you can see, we've got the red line, baby. And the red line, much like the blue line here, branches off into several different areas. There's different reasons for that, and we will get into that in due course. Obviously, the blue line stays mostly the same, coming down through here, Westport, Cherry Hill. You see this little branch here. We've changed some things up. That's what I'm going to get into right now. So at Patapsco, and we've seen stops like these before. So basically this would be sort of a split stop. This is the same Patapsco Avenue stop that we have currently. There would just be another one in this median here on Patapsco Avenue. It would follow Patapsco Avenue through and over the Patapsco River and into Brooklyn, which I would argue is one of the most underserved neighborhoods in the city, not just from a transit standpoint, but from a just economic standpoint, is one of the most underserved regions in the entire city, and that's just a complete missed opportunity for the city as a whole. But it is also a very deliberate choice for the city. It is one of the, I would argue, least talked about parts of the Black Butterfly in Baltimore, and it is one of the worst neighborhoods for fentanyl in our community, and that is a huge problem that goes completely underreported and not talked about nearly enough. But I say all of that to say they deserve transit service. Why? In this particular example here, we have stops at Hanover Street, 4th Street, 7th Street, Pennington Avenue, and down to Curtis Bay. Now, this sort of mimics the CityLink Silver. Also mimics the Cherry route, the Charm City Circulator route that Mayor Brandon Scott introduced not that long ago. It got up to, I think, 12,000, 15,000 riders a month in like its first month in service. Why? Because the people in that area are so underserved by transit, they need something. And when something was provided, they used it. So I think, honestly, this would be one of the most ridden lines in the city. Why does the blue line have so many branches on it? The light rail, as we colloquially call it. Why does it have so many branches on it, you may ask? That is because I think the light rail needs a bit of a transformation. If we're going to add all this heavy rail, at least in my map here, we're going to need the light rail to do a little more than it traditionally has done in the past. What does that mean necessarily? Well, it means that it's going to have to be more of a regional tram people mover type of situation rather than an interurban system, and its frequencies are going to need to be a lot better. How can you do that? Well, you can run different expressways, or different express services, excuse me. As we can see here, one of these express services is the Penn Station to BWI Express service. It runs express from Westport all the way to the airport terminal, and then obviously stops at the business district for employees, for employee parking, and then it will run express all the way to Penn Station. Why is that important? Because we need people to take the light rail from the airport. We cannot have people just saying, oh, well, it's too slow, it's not this, it's not that. We can have local service on the light rail and have express service on the light rail at the same time. We own the infrastructure. It's possible as long as we have the vehicles and the drivers. Unfortunately, that's not in the cards at the moment, but in my fantasy map, it would be. And so we are going to do just that right here. Now, as we see with the blue line, it is sort of self-explanatory here. It's mostly keeping its traditional shape. The Glen Burnie stops, they're the same. But let's look at the route combinations here. So Penn Station to BWI, that's an express. Hunt Valley to BWI, that is the current run that it makes right now. The Cromwell line, I've stopped it at Lutherville. That's because just generally, I think, running it all the way to Hunt Valley doesn't necessarily give you the best bang for your buck. I just genuinely think that, Lutherville to Cromwell just provides more of a service frequency in the trunk of the light rail, which would give it the most use. And then we have the Brooklyn branch here, which would run from Curtis Bay to North Avenue. Why am I terminating that service at North Avenue, you may ask? Well, because we have the Subway Link Gold line right here at Micah Mount Royal and North Avenue for the blue line. What is the Subway Link Gold? Well, I will tell you, the Subway Link Gold is a mishmash of the proposed red line that we've seen in real life mixed with subway service that I think this region truly, truly needs and truly, truly deserves. There is an account on Twitter/X that has been fighting for the longest time to get the red line to be heavy rail instead of light rail. I didn't necessarily agree with that in real life. In this case, though, I kind of wanted to homage that a little bit. I wanted to give that some credence because I actually think that that's a good idea. So here, let's zoom in. So Security Square Mall, that stop, let's get this out of the way here. Security Square Mall, that stop would be elevated in this giant ass parking lot around the station. And then it would run along the median of Security Boulevard as the original plan for the red line does. Security West would stop here. It would follow this Woodlawn Drive here, elevated or at grade, whatever suits you, to the Social Security Administration. Then it would run in the median of 70 to the I-70 Park and Ride, which is a park and ride. And then it would, as the plan says, not go under Cook's Lane, but it would go underground in a deep bore tunnel underneath the Giant, which should come back, to Edmondson Village. Because this is heavy rail, it would remain underground. That's very important. In Edmondson Village. It then continues underground past the cemetery to Mount Holly, where it will come above ground, either come above ground and go over the Edmondson Avenue Bridge, or, and I've talked about this, I talked about this in my red line video. The Edmondson Avenue Bridge was reinforced for light rail, but not for heavy rail. Heavy rail would be, I think, too heavy for this bridge. So you would either go underneath of it some way, tunnel underneath of the Gwynns Falls Trail, somehow in a deep bore tunnel, or you would, because you can't do cut and cover for that, you would need a deep bore tunnel. Or, you know, however, my in this version of Baltimore City, I have it cut and cover to Mount Holly, deep bore tunnel to Franklin here, which is the intersection of Franklin Town and Edmondson Avenue. It would follow Franklin until you get to West Baltimore MARC station. So the difference in the red line is not very different, as you can see right now, but it'll get different in a second here. So at West Baltimore MARC, it will then go northbound to Harlem Park. This is where it starts to service some pretty dense living areas here. Harlem Park, Mosher Riggs, Pressman Baker. These areas have bus service currently. They deserve far more than that. There's a lot of people living in this area. A lot of them don't have cars. It would then intersect at Penn North, connecting it to the Green Line here. It would go to Linden, Utah, Micah Mount Royal, where it connects to the Blue Line. And it would connect to the Blue Line at Charles North and Guilford Greenmount. It would then continue on to Harford Road and branch off in two different ways. First would be something that I talked about in my Metro Subway Link video, providing service to Morgan State University. Why don't we do that? It's ridiculous. It is honestly ridiculous for such a huge population of Black people to live in West Baltimore and East Baltimore and not have subway service to Morgan State University or to Mervo. That's unbelievably stupid. And I know that it's a constrainment of resources. That's why it's not the way it is. But my God, do we need to shoot for the stars on that one. That is so vital to the economic stability and future of this region. So as we can see, it goes all the way up to Morgan State following Perring Parkway. And that is just one branch of the Subway Link Gold. The other branch has a stop here at North Wolf Street and continues on to an extension of the Green Line up Blair Road, underground, all the way to Fullerton. Here, the Gold then continues on to Rossville and into Perry Hall, where it terminates there. The Green Line, as you can see, extends from Johns Hopkins University Hospital down here up to Madison Square. There's another stop here at Broadway Berea. It stops and intersects with the Gold Line at Erdman Avenue, and then up to Fullerton here. And then it follows one of the initial plans to take it down 695 over to 95. It would stop at the Community College Baltimore County at Essex, which would be huge to connect people in that area to Essex and to the Community College in Baltimore County there. It would then follow the it would be elevated over 95, these express toll lanes here, and then it would follow this tree line on an elevated viaduct, and it would curve into the avenue in White Marsh, and then it would curve into the White Marsh Mall. There's this little strip here. I've always wondered why that's there, and I've always thought, hey, that would be great. As you can see, there's a White Marsh park and ride here. A lot of these things were already built with the idea that subway service would be extended here. I think servicing the mall directly makes a better use case than, throwing it at a park and ride. But, what am I to say? I think that would be a huge win for the region. And having the Green Line on branches like that, I think really does a lot. So obviously you see this little part of the Green Line here. At Owings Mills, it goes down, and we'll just sort of show it here. That's the Fullerton branch. This is the West Baltimore MARC branch. So there is a set of tracks. I'm not sure who owns them, but there's a set of railway tracks here that follows the Green Line anyway. And this would be a little infill station here at Liberty Heights Avenue, Baltimore City Community College, Ashburton here. So that would be another stop. So there would be 2 stops here for the community college. There is 2 kind of campus areas here. So that kind of makes sense there. One of the things that's always bothered me about the Green Line is that it only services Coppin State University through Mondawmin. And I talk a lot about servicing Morgan State because I think that's very important. But Coppin should get some love too, guys. Our HBCUs need some love. This corridor is an immensely dense corridor, highly populated. These people need a connection to these places of higher learning. They're employment centers. They're places of higher learning. Why we are keeping our youth away from these areas is a deliberate waste of potential, and we need to service these areas with mass transit better. This would take you down to Benelo Carver here, then down to Lafayette, and then into the West Baltimore MARC station. Okay, so now that we've made it to the West Baltimore MARC station, we see the totality of the Green Line here, all the way to White Marsh Mall, all the way to Owings Mills. It creates that U shape that was in the original plan. The Gold Line also goes to West Baltimore MARC. Why is there so many connections to the West Baltimore MARC? Well, I wanted all of these subway link modes to connect to the MARC in some way. And honestly, the West Baltimore MARC is one of those stations that's getting a rehab. And it would be great for more people to be able to use it. A ton of people live in this region. You know, I know we don't like to talk about it, but a lot of people live in this region because it's cheaper than DC, and a lot of people live in this region and work in DC. And I think that it's a disservice to this region to act like that doesn't happen. So, I think connecting that place to that station better makes a lot of sense. It also helps, kind of connect to BWI in a way, take the MARC down to BWI. So there's different use cases for this. It's not just to get people to DC. Okay, we're gonna look at the Red Line now. We have the totality of the Red Line here. Let me pull it up. The totality of the Red Line. So, as you can see, Ellicott City over here, all the way to Dundalk and to Sparrows Point. That's crucial. So let's start in the west here. What are we doing? This is old Ellicott City here, as you can plainly see. And what is this routing? As you can see, B&O has an old stop there. That's that trestle there that says Ellicott City on it. Across the Patapsco, there's this little spot here. This is where our old Ellicott City, right by Old Mill Cafe, this is where our old Ellicott City station is going to be. Why is that? Let's zoom in here. See this trolley line number 9 trail? There used to be a trolley line that ran to old Ellicott City right along that trail. So we're going to basically recreate that trolley with light rail, with a tram, which is why I sort of made it a tram here. So it weaves through the woods here. See the red trail, Benjamin Banneker Historical Park, goes through these woods here, and then out onto the road, which is Edmondson Avenue. First stop along the way, Catonsville Junction. Right here, it will go and follow the old number 9 trail excuse me, this is the number 8 trail. So the number 9 continues on Edmondson Avenue traditionally. The number 8 used to intersect with it at Edmondson Avenue and go this way. So we're going to follow the number 8 trail now. Again, these are all old rail to trail routes. So these are protected right of ways from what I understand. It'll go past Hillcrest, as you can see, and the next stop will be, obviously you could put a stop here at Hillcrest Elementary School, but as we know, the NIMBYs do not like public transportation connecting to schools in the suburbs for whatever reason. But, you know, I think it would be a great idea. So we would put a stop there if we could. It would continue on to Frederick Road here, with the next stop being at Catonsville Mellor, which is just this little plaza here. The shop's on Mellor, obviously down here. Catonsville Elementary School, Bloomsbury Avenue. It would continue, again, this is all at grade. These stations are all at grade. It would continue above grade here, over the Beltway, back onto the street, where it would stop at Paradise, continue until we get to these woods here, where it would deviate from Frederick Avenue a little bit. At Windholm, by these townhouses here, in this sort of Westgate area of homes here, St. Peter's College, Tremont, where it would go next, following Frederick Road, obviously Irvington, past Loudon Park Cemetery, past Mount Olivet Cemetery, over the Gwynn Falls Trail to West Side. I'm a big proponent of connecting shopping centers, specifically shopping centers with grocery stores, to transit, as you can see. It's a huge benefit. It will go on to Pratt Street here. Not Pratt Street, excuse me, Lombard Street in Southwest Baltimore. Union Square will be one stop, and it'll continue down to Collins Market here. These are two neighborhoods in Southwest Baltimore that have really good bus ridership and honestly should have something more substantial connecting them to it. The other branch of the Red Line here goes to the West Baltimore MARC, services Franklin Square here, in the median of the Highway to Nowhere. We have a stop, obviously, in Poppleton. This would all be at grade here. And then Biopark here, University of Maryland. And then it would meet up with this branch of the Red Line above grade. So this would be above grade here. UMMS, so basically University of Maryland and Baltimore, and then shock trauma, the hospital would all be serviced by this stop here, above grade. Then the Convention Center, Camden Yards, connecting to the Blue Line, still above grade. We are at the Inner Harbor, Harbor Place, what would be the new Harbor Place. And then, of course, it would connect at the Convention Center stop with the Purple Line, the subway. It would continue above grade over the Jones Falls, over President Street, until it goes to Perkins, Little Italy. Now, I know Little Italy, people are going to be like, that's not Little Italy. I know it's not Little Italy, really. It's Perkins Homes. I get it. But that would be the general other area that it would service. Perkins Homes is undergoing a major renovation right now. So having them serviced in this way would be really, really, really good for the region. And it would provide public transportation to people living in affordable housing. I think that's crucial. You can see here, we stop in Fells Point. This is Broadway. Now this would all be at grade, as you can see, and it would branch off at Eastern Avenue. And then part of it continues on Eastern Avenue. This part continues underground. So there would be a little underground tunnel here underneath Fleet Street. Over here onto Boston, and it would appear above ground again in the median until it gets to O'Donnell and Lakewood. That's St. Casimir's. That's Canton Square over here. It would follow Boston Street till it got to Canton Crossing Shopping Center. It would then continue on. This is the Baltimore Greenway Trail here. We continue at grade. We sort of see kind of a pathway here a little bit that's been already sort of semi-created here. It's because a rail line used to run through here. And so it would have a stop here in the middle of all these apartments at Haven, Brewers Hill. It would then follow Haven, join up with some of these tracks. This is in the initial, these are Norfolk Southern tracks. It would join up here. This is in the initial Red Line plan. And it would follow up to Greektown, where it would meet with the other branch of the Red Line. And it would then meander into Johns Hopkins Bayview Medical Center. Right there. So that is where the current Red Line would stop at Bayview. But we're going to continue because we're explorers. And we're going to go all the way to Dundalk here. Down Dundalk Avenue to O'Donnell Heights. Connect us to O'Donnell Heights. Oh, that just had a... Whoa. Oh my God. Then we're going to come down here to Hollibird. Jimmy's Famous Seafood is right there. I know he'd be thrilled to have the light rail next to his place. I mean, he wouldn't, but whatever. Hollibird. And then it would continue down to one of the more underrated parks and public spaces, I think. Dundalk Heritage Park is actually kind of really nice. When I used to work in local news in Baltimore, I honestly, whenever I covered anything in Dundalk, would make my way over there because I think it's just a beautiful place to just kind of sit. It's very nice. Anyway, it would continue on down Dundalk Avenue to Logan Village, which is this little shopping center here, right next to Browning Road. And it would see this little, so that's in the median here, but there's these little trails here. And it would follow this trail past Browning Highway right here, this road here. So I don't know if this is a public thoroughfare or not. I haven't done my research on that spot yet, but it would make a great place to build light rail that would not inconvenience. You know, you could either build it in the median here on Browning or you could build it somewhere else. But I think it would make sense to either run it on these tracks that already exist, buy them somehow, and then run it and build more tracks here, or, you know, just figure out a way to do it there. And then it would go down to Turner Station, Solars Point, and we're getting to the first major piece of infrastructure. Woo! What is it? It's a bridge. It's a bridge. Not a tunnel, it's a bridge over Bear Creek. So it's one of the fingers that goes into the Chesapeake Bay, obviously. But it would be a bridge. Why? Because as far as I can tell, there aren't major vessels, as in like super huge ones, that need to go over this area. And there's already train bridges, as you can see here, over Bear Creek in certain other instances. This would just be longer. And it would probably have to come down here, but basically I'm having it go over Bear Creek and over to Tradepoint. There is a bus, the 163, that goes to Tradepoint Atlantic through Dundalk. That would just mimic that service. It's a very popular express link service. That was sort of the mindset behind that. And then, of course, we have the other part of the Red Line here that goes from the West Baltimore MARC station down here. We've talked about that part. And then this is the split here at Fells Point. It would go to Patterson Park. It would go to Linwood, right here at Eastern Avenue. Then it would go to Highland Town, meet up with the other branch of the Red Line in Greektown and at Bayview, then split again and follow Pulaski. I think that's Pulaski. Is that Pulaski or Patapsco? Or am I just losing my mind? Yeah, it's still Eastern Avenue. And there would be a stop here near the Broadway Diner in Anchor Square. And then I think Eastern continues. Yeah, so we just keep following Eastern. Eastwood, East Point Mall. That's the money right there. East Point Mall. And then, you know, maybe Back River. You'd want to have a place, you want to continue to, I think a lot of transit enthusiasts don't include working people's needs enough. And the working people's needs here would need to be met somehow. The people that work at the treatment plant, the people that work at all of these different areas here would also need service. This would be a bridge over Back River to Essex, and then it would continue on here to this shopping center over here in Middlesex, and that is the crux of the Red Line there. And I think the only line we haven't really gotten in the weeds with here is purple and orange. So let's start on the purple line now. So here's the purple line part that we've already talked about. This is Lutherville. Up here, the reason for this is because you want all of your modes to connect in one way or another, especially if they're different modes of transportation. So here you would have Lutherville Transportation Center connected here, and these are all opportunities. Look at these big parking lots here, man. These are all opportunities for transit-oriented development. The state's already made it easier to do that. You need to capitalize on that. And these would be opportunities to do that. So Lutherville Transportation Center. Obviously, we've followed it all the way down York Road here until this split here. And this is where York Road sort of makes that sort of weird curve through the traffic circle in Towson. My proposal would be to have the station basically in that circle, underneath of it, and above it, sort of turn that into a vibrant, true town square type of feel, because you've got all this development happening here. Towson Town Center is right there. You would follow this all the way to Towson University. Obviously, you want to connect that to this system. And then right here, which I think is an underrated stop, at St. Joe's. Now, this would be underground as well. St. Joe's needs to be a part of this. Connecting medical centers and universities to this is not just crucial for getting people to that. You say, oh, well, people aren't going to take the subway to the hospital, man. It's not what this is about. This isn't about, your wife's pregnant, you put her on the subway and you take her to the hospital to deliver her a baby. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is people who work at the hospital, people who are interning at those hospitals, people who work administrative roles at those hospitals, the janitors for those hospitals, people working in the parking garages. There are so much more than just patients that go into a hospital and its function, and having transit directly go to those places, like we've seen already at Johns Hopkins on the Green Line in real life, goes a long way. So I think connecting these hospitals along the way is huge. It's massive. Then we would continue down York Road here to the Ainsley Shopping Center. I say Ainsley. I don't know if it's Ainsley or Ainsley. If I'm wrong about that, somebody tell me, but I've lived here for about 10 years and I've never been corrected when I say that. Whatever. Anyway, this would be the Belvedere Square station, directly serving Swallow at the Hollow and the Senator Theater, which is one of the most beautiful places to see a movie in Baltimore. If you haven't done so, I would go there to see a movie any day of the week. That's that station there. We continue down, and this is all cut and cover here, guys. So cut and cover instead of deep bore tunnels. So instead of like what they're doing with the 2nd Avenue subway in New York's cost them billions and millions of dollars, mostly because they want to make the stations like cathedrals. But instead of deep bore tunnels, this is cut and cover. So you cut out underneath, you build what you need, throw it back over top, and you just continue on down the street. That's how they built subways, most of the subways in New York, in Philadelphia, in Boston, in all of these other places. Obviously, Chicago decided to go for the elevated method for most of their stuff, but you get the idea. We'll continue down to Beaumont. That services Notre Dame of Maryland and Loyola. So these are stops that sort of connect to both student housing and regular, more suburban-looking development. Through Guilford onto 33rd and Merriman. This is where we get into the Johns Hopkins area. So you see Baltimore City College here, Johns Hopkins Eastern Campus, MedStar, connecting hospitals. Again, that's important. The Johns Hopkins University Homewood campus, right here. That it would basically be their stop. And there are students that live all up and down this corridor here. Peabody Heights Brewery. I was so tempted to put a Peabody Heights stop on this map, and I still might do it. All the way to 25th Street and Gutman. Then it would curve underground before meeting the Gold Line at Guilford and Greenmount. It would have a one-stop shuttle to Charles North before continuing on to Penn Station. Now, the engineers can tell me whether or not that's feasible. I don't necessarily think it is. I just did that because I kind of thought it would be cool. I think what would need to happen in that scenario is not have that little stub connection to Charles North, but just go straight, not have this connection here, but to go straight from Greenmount to Penn Station, I think would be what would actually have to happen. But, it's a fantasy. A guy can dream. So we're going to Penn Station here. That connects it to both the light rail and to Amtrak and to the MARC. And now we're in the meat of it. We go underneath in a deep bore tunnel, underneath the monument in Mount Vernon, where it connects to the Orange Line at the Basilica Mercy stop. Mercy Hospital right here. The Basilica, Baltimore Basilica over here. Charles Center. Now, when I was in my video on the subway link, I went to Charles Center and I showed you how freaking big it is. It was supposed to be the hub of a major transit project in the Baltimore region. It never was. It's still big enough to hold that many people. We need to give it, make use of that space. We need to, give it the service it deserves. Continue on down. I was hesitant to put a station at the Inner Harbor, to be honest. And I'll tell you why. Because I hear a lot of arguments about the watershed and about how, it's not really feasible to do more than tunnel down there. I don't know how true that is, to be honest. But I think that it would be good to connect it directly to the Red Line. But again, Charles Center is close enough, I think, to the Inner Harbor that it wouldn't be too big of a deal. But again, I don't like making excuses for this stuff. I think that it, speaks for itself. It's a good place to put a station, in my view, if at all possible. Here we have a station at Henrietta and Leadenhall. That would basically be the connection to M&T Bank Stadium. So essentially, if you're coming from Towson to go see a Ravens or Orioles game, you would get off either at the Inner Harbor or at Henrietta, Leadenhall, and walk over to M&T Bank Stadium. It would then continue underground underneath Race Street here. There's these tracks already over here. This station at Fort would either be above ground or below. I think it's probably going to have to be below because I don't think these people would be very happy with a station that close. And then it would continue either along this right-of-way here or in congruency with it, above ground, eventually becoming above ground, coming by the Quill by Alta, which is a new development down in this part of Federal Hill / Riverside. And it would then come across the CSX tracks under 95, over McComas Street, and into Port Covington / the Baltimore Peninsula. We're going to go the extra mile here, guys. I don't understand why there isn't a rail connection to this place because I think it's not really feasible. Duh. But cruise terminal, man. That's a slam dunk terminus right there. I mean, it's the cruise terminal. There's so much parking down there. You can do so much more with that cruise terminal than just be a bunch of parking lots. And if you put a metro station there, it would facilitate a lot of people going on cruises. You wouldn't have to worry about parking when you got back. You know, it can be a mess. And I think, you know, putting a stop at the cruise terminal, at least you covering your bases in that regard. So we have most of these checked off the list. Now for the piece de resistance, and it's not really the piece de resistance, it's just because it's the last one left to talk about. The orange line, the orange metro line, the orange subway link, the subway link orange metro line. That's what's next. Okay, so as we can see, it starts or ends, you never really know, at the West Baltimore MARC station. That's a huge hub. I think that's a good place to put, you have a lot of space. You know, they talk a lot about the highway to nowhere and it needing to, you know, use a lot of that space. I think this is a really good way to use a lot of that space. So the West Baltimore MARC station here continues on. It does not stop at Franklin Square. As you can see, the orange line passes where the red line stops, and it will stop here at what I call MLK Plaza. But, you know, you have City Place in the Avenue, Metro West. It's basically these buildings over here that are the northern part of the University of Maryland Hospital campus and the neighborhoods up Saratoga, up this way. It would then stop at Lexington Market and Basilica Mercy. So right there you have the core of a system, right? Serving central Baltimore City in very dense areas, very dense environments where people live. That's a huge part of this map. It would then continue either above or underground to Old Town. This was sort of I don't know if I should put one here, but we're sort of doing work in Old Town, I guess. There's a plan to revitalize it. I don't know how it's going to go, but in a future where there is an Old Town Mall development, you would definitely want subway service to that. So we are going to give it exactly that. It'll then reconnect with the Green Line here at Johns Hopkins Hospital. That, I think, is crucial. Why is that important? Because you want some redundancies in these areas. We see it all the time with the MARC. When the Penn line has issues, you jump on the Camden, you can get back to Baltimore City. If the Camden line's having issues, you can jump on the Penn line and get to Baltimore City. You want to have some redundancy. Now, I'm not an expert in this field. I'm not an engineer. I'm not somebody who does this for a living. I'm just somebody who loves it. So tell me if I'm full of, you know, bullshit or not, but I think that makes a lot of sense. You'd have a stop here at Patterson Park and Madeira, McKeldrey Park, sort of that kind of area. These are very dense, obviously, as you can tell, dense urban living environments north of Patterson Park. Then you would have another stop here at Lakewood Glover, Elwood Park. That would be a good space for a stop because you look in here, you have a lot of green space and an Aldi. Again, I'm big on grocery stores. I'm big on hospitals. Those are underrated staples of our city that deserve a lot of service for public transportation. They do so much to hold up our community. And not for nothing, in this version of Baltimore, I can't imagine, even though it's my fantasy, I would love it for this not to be the case, but there's still probably going to be food deserts in a lot of the city. And to give people rapid transportation to grocery stores and to hospitals, I think is a huge, huge way to combat grocery stores not wanting to set up shop in certain areas of the city for whatever reason. Then you have it go past Hebrew Friendship Cemetery, over all this industrial stuff here, to a stop at Armistead Gardens, which is this little development here. It continues over 95 into Rosedale. And then this is where it starts to mimic what the Green Line was supposed to do in the initial 2002 plan. So Golden Ring right here was supposed to be along that corridor. Then you follow it through 695, up, it connects back with the Green Line here at CCBC in Essex, and then on to White Marsh Mall, the Avenue, and White Marsh Mall, its terminus here. I think there's a lot of good things going on here. And there's a lot of redundancies, and there's a lot of things that you're probably scratching your head looking at this map and thinking, what the hell is this guy thinking? But in general, I like this map because it presents a version of Baltimore City that just thinks big, man. I think that's one of the things we just got to do more of, is just think big. And I think a lot of people are thinking big, but I genuinely believe that this city deserves this level of transit access. It seriously could have had something mimicking this for far less money. And it was in the cards in the 60s and the 70s, and we just decided to piss it away. And to see what we could have had is just, it's sad, honestly. It's sad that we don't have it. And it's sad that we're looking at upwards of, 6, 4, that's 10, that's already built. So like 1 billion, so maybe like 10. You're looking at, just on the metro side of things, you're looking at upwards of $30 billion to build out something like just the metro lines that we have here, which honestly, the Ontario line in Toronto is $30 billion, and it's only about the size of this gold line here from Security Square Mall to Morgan State. So this could be hundreds of billions of dollars worth of infrastructure that we could have had built way in the past for way less money. That is my fantasy map of Baltimore City. If you liked this video and you somehow made it all the way through this video, that probably should have been a live stream now that I think about it, please comment. Tell me if you think that this was helpful, if you liked this, if you want to see more of this. I honestly kind of enjoy just riffing and going off and doing my own thing here. So I really appreciate any feedback, and I would love to make more maps in the future. So I would love to make more videos like this in the future. Thank you very much. And as always, appreciate you.